Now, I mentioned that using the styles attribute is just one way to use CSS in our documents, and it's actually the least powerful way we can use CSS. So let's try out the next one. Now, one thing that you'll notice is if we wanted to apply a style to a whole bunch of paragraphs, using this technique, I'd have to paste the style into every paragraph. And imagine if we changed the style of one paragraph, I'd have to go replicate the changes on all the others. So what we really want to do is we want to write our style once and then use it in multiple places. And we do that by using a style tag. So let's set that up. I'm going to go up to the top of my document, and our style tag is one of the items that goes into the head. So I'll just go up here and make a new line underneath the title, and I'll add in my style tag. Our style tag is going to have a closer, and it's going to contain styles. So I'm just going to go down a couple lines here, and I'll close my style tag. And what we'll do is we'll take this H1 style, and we'll apply it using the style tag instead of the style attribute. First of all, I can take all of these rules right here and just cut them right out of my H1 line, and I'll paste them into my style tag. Now, just to clean things up, I'll remove the rest of the pieces of the style attribute down here. And we need to add a few things up here in the style attribute. First of all, we're going to have a bunch of different rules applied up in here, and we want to keep them separate from one another. We do that by adding in an open curly brace and a closed curly brace. Now, as you can see, I've added those on the line above and the line below. But we know HTML doesn't care about white space in our document, so you could have these in line with your rule or on separate lines. It's completely up to you. As we start adding more rules, this method makes it a little bit more visible to see one rule from another. Now that we've basically defined one rule, we need to see how this rule is going to be applied. And we do that in CSS by giving each rule a selector. The selector determines where the rule is going to be applied. And since we want to apply it down to an H1 tag, we can use a tag selector right up here at the beginning of the rule to define which tag we want it applied to. So I'll type in H1, and we've completed our first rule. Let me save this change, and let's go and refresh our page. Now you notice our first heading is still centered and it's still italicized, but what you'll also notice is that our second heading is now also italicized and centered. And that starts to show a little bit of the power of CSS. When we create a rule and assign it to an H1 tag, the program will assign that to every H1 tag in our document automatically. Let's try out another one. I'll go down below the style rule for H1, so we'll go down below that complete set of brackets, and let's add a style rule for the P tag. I'll just type in P, the name of the tag. I'll set up some open and close brackets for my style rule. And inside here, let's just try out another alignment. I'll use the text-align property. Of course, we use a colon to set the value. And this time, let's use a right align. I'll just type in right. Now, all I've done is made a rule for paragraphs. I'll save my change. We haven't touched any of our paragraphs down below. But when I go back and refresh the page, you can see that my paragraphs have aligned right. All except this one in the center here. Well, now we're starting to see the cascading part of cascading style sheets. The concept of cascading refers to the fact that any given element inside your document may be receiving style rules from multiple different places. And some of those rules might conflict with one another. So cascading is the way that CSS and your browser determines what style gets applied where. Let's take a look at a specific paragraph. Here's a paragraph that's receiving lots of different styles. There's the paragraph style rule that pushes all the other paragraphs to the right, and then there's the rule that we applied directly to the div using the style attribute that centers this paragraph and makes it italic. And you can see that that second rule is actually winning. That's not a bad way to think about our cascading style sheets. Generally, we'll have a more generic rule, like the paragraph style that says all paragraphs need to be one particular look. But then we have additional rules, like this style down here, which is much more specific. It indicates that this one paragraph is supposed to be styled differently. And as you can see, the more specifically applied rule is the one that's going to win or override the first one. So on this paragraph, we're not seeing any right align, we're only seeing the center align. If I go ahead and remove this specific style that we have on this line, save my change, and go back and refresh the page, you can see that now that paragraph behaves just like the other ones. A lot of things affect these cascading rules, but a good way to think of it is the more specific the application of the rule, the more likely that rule will win over other ones. Now, we'll see more of cascading as we move through the rest of the chapter.